Let's face it, auto repair can feel a little bit overwhelming when you see these giant toolboxes packed with endless gadgets. But here's the thing, this small mobile toolbox I have holds 90% of the tools that I use every single day. In this video, I'm opening it up to you to show you exactly what's inside, why these essentials get the job done, and what tools you actually need to tackle most repairs without mortgaging your house. Whether you're a pro or just getting started, this is the setup that I've used to fix thousands of cars. So let's take a look inside. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Auto Tech Garage. My name's Keith. Today we're talking tools. This is one of my favorite subjects. I got a lot of money invested in tools, but that doesn't mean that you have to. I know you might be starting out in the industry. Maybe you just bought a new home and you want to set up that home garage. This way you're well equipped to work on some stuff around the house, fixing the cars and taking care of the toys at home. And this set here that I'm going to show you has got just about everything that you'll need to take care of the most basic stuff and probably a lot of the advanced stuff. There are a ton of tools out there, specialty tools for all kinds of stuff. A lot of that stuff I just keep in the big toolbox behind me. I don't carry it all around in here. This is designed to be mobile. We've got 7 bays in this garage, and I make this so we can just kind of wheel it to whatever lift I'm working on, whatever bay I'm in, and this is my mobile unit. So this goes with me wherever I'm working at, and then I'll have to kind of jump back and forth to the big toolbox if there's some other things that I need. So let's get right into this toolbox. I want you to come in close and we'll show you what's going on in here. All right, so here we are. I've got the lid open on this toolbox. This actually closes and locks, but I never do that. I just leave it open all the time because it has all my necessities fixed to the back of this. A lot of this stuff is magnetic and it's stuff that I usually grab for pretty often, so I just like to leave it handy where I can get to it easily. So you'll see I have a lot of magnetic trays. I've got all kinds of clamps, safety glasses. I keep a flashlight here. Unibits are good when you need to drill something quickly, open a hole or something. I also keep my chemicals up here, WD-40 and brake clean. I've got my rubber gloves. I use a ton of those. I don't want to get my hands beat up anymore. And I keep my battery tester here. By the way, guys, if you haven't seen my video on this, I'll pop a card up here for you. This is a pretty cool tool, nice to have around the house if you guys have a few cars at home. I also keep my inspection mirrors over here. These are super handy. This is some suspension tools, and then as I work down here towards the base of this is where I keep all my sockets. I don't like having my sockets in a drawer. I like keeping them up top where they're easy to grab and easy to see. So I've got all types of the most common sockets that I use, 1/4-inch drive, deep, shallow, and semi-deep. The same thing for 3/8 drive, deep, shallow, and semi-deep. And then I've got impact sockets, deep. I've got wheel sockets. I've got spark plug sockets. You should always have a good collection of spark plug sockets if you guys are doing your own tune-ups. I've got swivel sockets, which are really important. Nowadays, it's hard to get in anywhere if you don't have an extension in a swivel socket. So make sure you invest in a good set of those. You'll see over here I have torque sockets, and I also have tamper-proof torque sockets. Now, I don't think that's really a necessity for a starter set. You're not going to see a lot of those, and if you're just starting out or at an intermediate level, there's a good chance you'll probably never need to use that for anything. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend those, but you may need a few of these spline drive sockets. These are popular on European cars, so it's good to have a nice set of those, and of course, plenty of Allen sockets. These are going to come in handy in just about everything. When it comes to sockets, I can tell you, working on cars for 35 years, at this point, the way things are going in the automotive field, I don't really feel it's necessary to have anything fractional. So no SAE sockets, nothing, no American sizes. They're just really not required. You might run into something once in a while. If you guys are home working on classic cars, something from the 60s, 70s, maybe into the early 80s, it's possible you might run across some things that need some fractional sizes. But it's really not a necessity. Nowadays, the focus is on metric tools. So if you're looking for a set of sockets, I would say buy metric. If you're looking for wrenches, buy metric only. You can always fill in a couple of pieces if you need a standard size here or there, but it's not worth buying a whole set in today's world. Hey guys, I almost forgot. I always keep this behind my toolbox. That's right, it's the like and subscribe button. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you get notifications when we release new content. Once you've got a nice collection of metric size sockets in both 1/4-inch, 3/8, and hopefully some 1/2-inch drive, you're going to need a good set of screwdrivers. And when I say good set, I mean a complete set. So some large ones and then some small ones and everything in between, and maybe even some smaller ones for really small things. Every once in a while you run along something that needs maybe glasses size screws. It's nice to have a little collection of tiny screwdrivers. You'll want to have those in a Phillips head and a flat blade. And you'll also want a nice collection of pry bars like these in assorted lengths. You know, this one is probably just a medium size. There are some that I have that are much longer, and some that I have are much shorter. If I come over to this side, I also keep more tools over here, screwdriver type tools. I've got longer screwdrivers, Phillips style, flat style, and even Torx style. So sometimes you need a screwdriver like this one that has a Torx T15 on it. That used to be really common, maybe not as much anymore. And I always have a nice selection of hose picks. So these are essential. If you don't have a set of hose picks, I recommend you go out and grab a set. They have these in different angles, so you can reach all kinds of weird spots with them, and they're really invaluable. I also keep a tire inflator handy. We use them all day, every day. Every time we're servicing a car, we're checking tire pressures. I like to have a lot of these tie down straps. These are great for pulling parts out of the way, holding things up, holding things over. It's like having an extra set of hands. I always keep at least 2 sets of these on my cart. This is not something I would recommend you get, but it's a brake pedal, throttle pedal depressor. Again, it's like having an extra set of hands if you need something. There's some times when you might need to hold the brakes down to loosen a bolt, and this is nice just to get in there and be that extra body if you don't have one with you. As far as power tools, I like to keep an assortment. I'm kind of old school, so I still like to use some air impact tools, but most of the guys don't really want to do that anymore. They're noisy, the compressor is noisy, and electric tools do the job just fine for most things. So it's nice to have some stuff in 1/2-inch drive, 3/8 drive, 1/4-inch drive. You can use electric ratchets like this guy. I'm a real fan of all these Milwaukee products. I've been using them for years, and they hold up really well. They have these batteries. I like to use the M12 size for most of this stuff. It's got plenty of power for most of the things you're going to use it for, and the battery is much more compact than going up to an 18 volt or larger. So I'm fond of these in particular. You see I've got a good collection of them. This is a 1/4-inch drive, and this is a 3/8 drive. I also like these little 1/4-inch drive guns. This one happens to be a snap-on, but I also like the ones made by Milwaukee. I can tell you, if you want to break bolts loose with this, it's not going to happen. So this snap-on tool is nice. It's got a brake built into it, a little clutch in it, so you can actually break a bolt loose, where you can't do that with the Milwaukee, but you'll pay 2 or 3 times the price for these. Guys, this is by far my favorite 3/8 drive gun. It is compact, it's powerful. I don't know what else I can say about this. This thing is a miracle tool. It's probably one of my favorite impact tools all around. So if you're into the Milwaukee stuff, this thing's fantastic. And of course, I have a small drill here. This is good for just about anything. You need to have something like this in your collection. So working my way down here, I like to keep all my wrenches in this top drawer. You're going to need a pretty decent assortment of wrenches. I've got like 10 through 19 millimeter in this tray. I like to use, you should have a good selection of combination wrenches. The combination being open end on one side, box end on the other. But I also like to have other wrenches at my disposal. There's a lot of tight spaces you need to get into. There's some bolts that are really hard to break loose. Sometimes you need a wrench like this that's not offset. It just happens to be straight up and down. There's no bend at the end of it. So, and they're fairly long. They have a lot of leverage on them. So these types of wrenches are great to have in your collection if you can. I'm also a fan of these. These wrenches are probably, they got to be at least 30 years old, believe it or not. And I've used the heck out of these things. Also, you should have an assortment of crow's foot wrenches of some sort. I like these because these are more of a line wrench than anything else. So if you need to get into a tight area, you need to break a bolt loose, and you have a pipe that's connected to it, these are going to do the job. I don't know if it's necessary for a home collection, but if you're going to be doing this for a living, you'll definitely want a set of those. Again, we got more here. These are line wrenches for brake lines and fuel lines and things like that. This is essential right here. those are midget wrenches. So you can see the size difference between those and these. You know, obviously half the size. And those are fantastic for getting in very tight spaces where you have limited access with a longer wrench. And then of course you'll just need a few bigger wrenches. And I've got here these ratchet wrenches. These are fantastic to have too because they can turn, bend, and they can ratchet tight or loose. So these I believe are made by Gear Wrench. And honestly, I'm really partial to the Gear Wrench. I've been using some of their products a lot the last 8 years or so, maybe even longer. They do a great job of providing a lot of value in a tool that's really good quality, but not the price of these fancy Snap-on, Matco, and Mac tools and things. They're a good value. I also have here a few picks. These are special picks. If you watch my Lexus oil change video, I talk about them in here, but they have a very blunt end on them. They're rounded. They're not sharp. They're not going to put a hole in anything, and they're nice to use on O-rings for air conditioning and fuel lines and all types of stuff. If you're working on General Motors products, this is a nice tool to have. This is just a 5/16 or 8mm head on here for removing the side terminals on a General Motors type battery. Moving on to the second drawer. I keep all my pliers in here. It's essential that you have a really good collection of pliers. You know, obviously I've got a bunch here, and to be honest with you, I have even more in the big toolbox. There's hundreds of different types of pliers, all kinds of stuff that you need, but some essential ones are long needle nose pliers, maybe not with the pistol grip, but just some regular ones. You'll definitely need some good side cutters, or the nickname on them are dikes. These are really critical. Plenty of pliers in different sizes like these. It's a good idea to have some of these types of needle nose pliers. These are great for grabbing things down where your hands can't reach, and they're great for pulling hoses off and things like that. So it's nice to have a selection of those. I also like to have some tin snips. These are good to have handy, and they're not very expensive. And then some battery tools, things like this. Terminal spreader. Obviously an assortment of vice grip type tools. And again, this is one of those things, I've been using this vice grip brand forever, and they just seem to be the best ones out there. I don't know why. I mean, Snap-on makes good ones too, but for the money, I think vice grip brand really makes some outstanding locking pliers. So most of these you see here are that brand vice grip. Even this C-clamp style one that I've got here. And I think you want some oil filter pliers and some oil filter sockets that fit your particular vehicle. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, it's good to have those for your cars, the ones that you work on. If you're in general service or you're just getting into this industry, you'll probably start to build your collection over time and make sure that you've rounded out and you've got plenty of sockets to fit most of the cars that you're working on every day. And that's what all of these are. These are all oil filter tools along the top. All right, as we get into drawer number 3, you're going to see we still haven't got to anything fancy. I told you I don't keep any fancy tools in here. These are all basic hand tools. Your choice of what brand you want to buy, but I'm always partial to Snap-on ratchets. I don't know why. I guess I've just had them forever and they feel good in my hand. But other than that, there's tons of great brands out there, but I've got a lot of them in here. You're going to want definitely some flex head ratchets, you know, especially in 3/8 and 1/4 inch drive. I keep some really long ones just to get in tight places. These are great. I like short ones as well. This one is a stubby with a 3/8 head on it. This one's super convenient. And then, of course, you'll need a torque wrench. At least one is good to have around. And I also recommend you guys keep some breaker bars. You know, probably the longer the better. If you've got something that's really stubborn and hard to come off, I don't recommend using a ratchet on it. It's better to use a breaker bar so you don't break your ratchet head and strip the gears on it. In here, I like to keep a lot of extensions. If you're going to do any transmission work, this thing is fantastic. 3/8 drive on the end, locking tip, and you can put this on an impact gun. So this is really great to have. But you'll need some longer extensions either way, like this one back here. And then a good assortment. When it comes to extensions, there's a few choices you should have in your box. Not only should you have a few different lengths, you guys can obviously connect these together if you need to go a little bit longer, but I recommend you have at least one with a locking head on it. This one keeps the socket in place. If for some reason you have something stuck, this will help you pull it out. So we see this a lot of times with spark plugs. You put your spark plug socket down in the tube and it gets stuck down there. The rubber in your socket gets stuck on the plug or something, and then if you have a locking socket, this will allow you to put it in place and really pull it out. So these are great to have, and I also recommend you have at least one of these. This has what they call a wobbly head on it, and that just allows you a little bit of movement without having to use a universal type socket. So it's good to have this. You can always put this on the end of another extension if you need the wobbly feature, and then it'll get you what you need. So definitely worth having there. I've got a ton of adapters in the corner here, converting sizes from 1/4 inch to 3/8, 3/8 to 1/4 inch, 3/8 to 1/2 inch to 3/8, and so on. It's good to have these adapters. You never know when you're going to need them. You might need to get a large socket in a small place, or a small socket attached to a larger ratchet, and these tools are great to have over there. I also recommend a couple of these universal extensions. So the universal sockets like these are extremely expensive. Okay, to get a socket to do this costs a lot of money. But if you took an item like this, you can put any socket on it and convert it into a universal socket. So if you're just getting started and you don't need a great collection of stuff and you don't want to spend a lot of money, at least have these, a nice set of these in impact strength would be really great. As I move through this drawer, I've just got a bunch of scrapers and picks. Plenty of brushes. These are more scrapers. There's a lot of items that need to be cleaned up when you're working on gasket material that needs to be removed and things, so you need a good assortment of that stuff. Here's a couple of the smaller screwdrivers I was telling you about with the really tiny heads on them. Stubby screwdrivers are always great in tight spaces. Obviously a spark plug gapping tool of some sort. These you got to be careful with when you use them. You don't want to do any damage to your electrodes, but it's good for measuring the gap on your spark plugs. And then as I work through here, I've got a whole assortment of some basic punches and chisels, all types here, long tapered ones, pin punches, tapered punches, center punches, just any large assortment of punches that you can have is good to have in your arsenal. You never know when you're going to need them. I keep a lot of picks. In here I have some long handle picks, which are great to have. And of course I keep some smaller ones, some really tiny ones to help you get in tight spaces. A bunch of brushes, razor scrapers like this are definitely invaluable. Battery terminal cleaner is always great to have. I keep a few of these timing belt pins. These are super handy to have around if you're going to be doing timing belts and things in your car. And that's pretty much the gist of what you might need in this drawer. These are carbide burrs. I wouldn't say that's something you need, but definitely handy to have in your box. Working our way down here to the next drawer, I've got a nice collection of hammers. You need ball peen hammers, mini sledgehammers, and a brass hammer I've got here. This is great because the head is malleable. It's just a softer material, so you're not damaging whatever you're hitting. You should have at least one of these. And this one you can't live without. This is a dead blow hammer. It's filled with a sand material, and it stops the hammer from recoiling after you've hit something metal and popping back at you. And it makes a pretty good impact. So these something you definitely need in your toolbox. You see in here I've just got more impact style tools, air tools, electric tools. I don't know if there's anything in here you absolutely need. This is a cutting tool, and then I've got another cutting tool here, a Sawzall type. You'll definitely want to have some sort of a hood prop. If for some reason your hood struts are not holding up, this is great to have. And to be honest with you, this thing's been pretty beat up. It's been used in a lot of other ways, so it's probably handy to have something like that. I do keep another one on top of the box. You'll probably want some sort of a cut-off wheel like this, and you'll also want some sort of a angle grinder like this. These are definitely tools that need to be in your toolbox. They're pretty essential. I don't put a ton of stuff down the bottom of this toolbox. It's just a pain to be bent over in and out of this thing, so I kind of just keep a few items that I'll use randomly in here. But this tool right here is a cooling system evacuation and refill tool. This is a fantastic tool, and I'll probably make a video about it here soon. if you're going to be working on any cooling system, you absolutely must have something like this. It doesn't have to be this Snap-on brand. It can be any brand, but I want to make sure that if you're working on a cooling system, you're able to purge the air out of the system, and this is the most effective way to do it. I also keep some gloves. Of course, you want to have some handy if you need to grab something and protect your hands. I always have a stethoscope handy if I want to listen to a noise, try to locate a noise. And then the rest of the tools in here I would consider non-essential. If you're going to do any diagnostic work, this is probably the most essential tool you'll have. This is called a power probe, and this just allows you to apply power or ground to certain circuits. It's great for checking fuses and all kinds of electrical things. So this is probably the most used tool of any diagnostic technician, and it's well worth having. All right, last couple bits here that I think are pretty essential. I love having these magnetic trays. These are fantastic when you're trying to organize your parts. As I'm taking things apart, I try to organize them in an order that makes sense. Sometimes you take these cars apart and they might sit that way for days or a week before you get the opportunity to put it back together. You might be waiting for something to arrive, or just it might just be a project car. And when you have all your hardware laid out neatly with these magnetic trays, they won't really move around, and it just allows you to come back and find your way quickly when you return to the project. So I definitely recommend you have a few of these. In addition to that, it's important that you have a place to put these things in some of your tools. So I always like to have at least one side tray on my tool cart because I'm working with it right next to the car. It'll just give me a place to put some pieces, especially the hardware. This is another item that I really like to have. This is just a silicone rubber set of trays that you can do the same with. You can put all kinds of little parts in here so you keep them organized, you don't lose anything. Organization is critical when you're doing something that involves a lot of parts. So anything you can do to be more organized, to keep your parts where you need them. You could literally split this up into different areas of the car and say, well, all the parts I took off the back I might want to put in this tray, and things I took off the front I'll put in this one. It just helps keep you organized. So if you can find some trays that you like, that work for you, I certainly recommend you put them in your collection. The last thing I wanted to talk about is this guy. This is just a simple knee pad. If you're working on cars, you're always up and down and on your knees on these hard concrete floors. Maybe you got a gravel driveway somewhere at your house that you're doing work at, and just protect your knees. They're not going to last forever. I can attest to that, and this will help save them. A little simple pad you can get. I think they have these even at Home Depot for $10 or something, so definitely worth having in your collection. Well, there you have it, guys. That's my whole collection in this mobile tool cart. As you can see, there's not a lot of fancy stuff in there. I know there's a lot of material in there, but nothing fancy. These are all just basic hand tools like I told you earlier. When it comes to brand, if you're doing do-it-yourselfer projects, or if you're just starting off in the industry, don't go straight to these fancy tool trucks and buy a bunch of stuff, because these items get expensive extremely quick. And a set of wrenches can be $500 or $600 for one set. I recommend you shop some of the other brands. Look at Harbor Freight. I know their new Icon brand is very good. Craftsman is still making some very good wrenches. There's a lot of options out there for you guys. I told you about the gear wrench products. I think they sell a lot of that stuff on Amazon. So if you guys are shopping Amazon, there's tons of great gear wrench products out there, and I'm a big fan of those. So be careful how you select your tools. I also wanted to mention there's a lot of people in this industry that are leaving. They're retiring. There's nothing wrong with used tools. A lot of these things, they last a lifetime, and they're all lifetime warranty. So maybe source out somebody that's retiring from the industry, is looking to unload some of their tools. That's always a great way to buy stuff. You don't have to go out and buy brand new items. They're just going to get dirty and beat up anyway. They clean up pretty nice with a little brake cleaner or something. So don't make a huge investment on some things if you're not going to be using them every single day. If you're going to be in this business for the rest of your life and you want to do this and this is your career, by all means, go ahead and spend a little extra money and get some tools that are going to be just a little bit higher quality. I think that'll pay you back dividends over many, many years. But if you're only temporary here or just doing some part-time stuff, I certainly wouldn't recommend making that investment. The most important tool you can possibly have is right up here, your brain. The biggest investment you'll ever make is in yourself. So I think before you go out and buy a bunch of tools, get educated. Do everything you can to learn the things that you want to learn, the things that you need to learn. That's where the money is best spent. These things are kind of ancillary. They'll work their way out over time. So I really recommend you do that. And these videos are hopefully a great start for you. Try to give you a ton of basic knowledge to get your career kick-started, to get your DIY projects kick-started. That's what we're here for. We want we want to help you, want to make these jobs a little bit easier for you and make sure you're as informed as possible. So we really appreciate you watching our content. Thanks for sticking with us through this. I hope you've got a better foundation here of what you might need to get going. And we got plenty more content for you. Check out this video over here, and we'll see you in the next one.